Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the incredible new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, tonight on NBC.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Welcome to the Recruiting Book Club. I'm Carmen Hudson, recruiting consultant and former TA leader and book author. With each episode of this podcast, I have invited a guest who's written a book about recruiting, sourcing, or TA leadership. I like to read each book before the interview, and that makes our conversations rich and useful. And sometimes we veer off the topic of the actual book and we get into TA issues. So I hope that makes it interesting and useful to you. Please let me know what you think. Or if you have a favorite TA book, I'll add it to my list of folks to be interviewed. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Welcome to the Recruiting Book Club. I have with me today just one of my favorite recruiters out there, Brian Fink. And Brian Fink wrote a book, Talk Tech to Me, the non-technical guide to technology recruiting. And since my roots are in tech recruiting, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, really looking forward to just learning what is on your mind. So I'm going to try to stick to the topic of what's in this book, but we may stray a little bit, and that's okay.
We may go on a tangent or something like that.
We may go on a tangent.
I love it, Carmen. Okay.
Love it. So Brian, tell the audience who you are, what you're doing now at McAfee, and try to summarize your long career in some bites that we can digest.
My name is Brian Fink. I am a technical recruiter. I've been doing technical recruiting for 15 years. I started off as a sales and marketing recruiter. I'm at McAfee today. I am responsible for finding the technologists that keep you and your family safe wherever you might go online. I have worked for a lot of different companies and done a lot of different things and built a lot of different mousetraps. The best way to summarize it is I like to help individuals, teams, and companies go from better to best. That's where I'm at.
So you've had quite a bit of experience in tech recruiting tech professionals. You've done it for companies like Apple and Amazon. And why do you stay within the realm of tech recruiting?
Technical talent is solving different challenges in new and unique ways every day. And what I really love hearing is I love hearing those stories, right? Like when I do an interview, I get to tune into a podcast, much like the conversation we're having right now, Carmen, is that when I say to a candidate, oh, you migrated from a prem data center environment to an AWS cloud environment. Why did you do that? Is that I get to find out how those individuals think in technical terms and whether or not they can break down complex technical concepts to the everyman so that we can understand it, right? Like I just said a minute ago, I started with recruiting salespeople and marketing individuals. That was very numbers oriented. And I think that makes me a better technical recruiter today because I can figure out not just how many lines of code you wrote, but how elegant a solution you put together. So what it comes down to is I like talking to people who are innovative and disruptive, and I find more and more of them in technology and in product management, data science, and we just have great conversations and we have good chemistry.
That's fantastic. I never had a great understanding of technology, so I would have to force candidates to break it down, to explain to me what they were doing and why it was important. And I found that made me a better recruiter in the end. But you seem to have a very deep understanding of underlying technology. I'd love to know, how did you learn that? Where did you get your information? Was it other recruiters, hiring managers, developers? Are you technical yourself?
I mean, I can code in HTML, right? But that doesn't help me to understand Kubernetes or how Terraform or how the pods work or things of that nature. I think that a recruiter has to, and I take this from the four Steves who have had the most influence on my life. Steve Fink, my dad, Steve Levy is a friend of ours, Steve Rath at Apple, and Steve Jobs, is that I like to think each one of them imbued me with the four qualities to be a great recruiter. And that's to be curious, to ask a lot of questions, to be empathetic, to try to understand where somebody's coming from, to be tenacious, to never give up and to go deeper and deeper. And then that last one, to be mischievous, right? And so I connect that, all those elements. I think Steve Levy is a really bastion, a great light of that. And when I was getting into technical recruiting, the first thing I discovered was Recruiting Inferno, his blog. And Steve is an engineer who went recruiter, right? So it taught me the way to craft my questions. It taught me the opportunity to be differential and ask those deeper questions. About those deeper questions is I had a hiring manager, a gentleman named Oscar Kazabuski, who was in the e-commerce space. And point blank, he said, Brian, if you don't know it all, you go and find out why and how things work. I want to ask a lot of whys. I subscribe to the Toyota 5 whys maxim that you need to ask why 5 times to dig in those deep levels. I think that really creates a difference to both the hiring manager and to the candidate, right? Is that recruiters say they want to show up for a hiring manager and they don't want to be an order taker. Carmen, in your book, The Corporate Recruiting Playbook, you isolate that and say, don't show up as the order taker, right? Anybody can do that with a pad and piece of paper. It's like ordering a hamburger, right? What we need to do and where we need to go deeper is that we have to ask those questions to fill in our own gaps in a meaningful way so that we can fill in the gaps of others in meaningful ways and pour back into their bucket. And that's where I come from.
I 1000% agree with you. So we were just talking beforehand about the erasure of many positions that we see that's coming because of the advancements in AI. And I think recruiters are on that list, they're on that block, but we do one thing that can't be done by machines. And if we don't do that well, if we don't do that with the deeper understanding, and that is sitting down, talking to hiring managers and finding out exactly what they need. They may need a software developer. They may need a software developer who codes in C++, but what do they need beyond that and why and how we can help them get there? And what are those different elements? What are those details that will get the candidate in front of them? It's the detail piece, conversation between a hiring manager. And I don't know that we're prepared to face what's going to happen.
Can an AI, and I know my friend Stan would say yes, but can an AI say to a hiring manager, hey, Carmen, I know that we need somebody who knows C++ and can code at the command line. What skill set are they going to learn in this role that is going to perpetuate your team and make sure they stick around beyond the initial 18-month mission?
That's it. And do they have the soft skills, the competencies to do the work in this environment? Hey, do we need someone who's going to be highly verbal and will speak up and who will address questions? Or do we need someone who is really sitting at their desk coding and not looking around them at all? And I don't know that we would be able to assess that from a machine standpoint. And I don't know that we would be able to ask those questions of the manager and have the manager actually think them through without some human intervention there. So I think that's what we have to do well in order to be successful as a recruiter. And I don't think many of us are prepared for that. And I am quite interested. We were talking about just the speed with which things are changing.
Oh, yeah.
At least here in the area of the country that I live in Seattle, where recruiters reign supreme. At one point, it was software developers and recruiters who ran this town. And now there are so many really great recruiters who are not working because the need is not believed to be as great as it once was. So I don't know if that's ever coming back, or maybe it's slowly coming back. I don't know. My guess is that it won't go back to the level that we once were.
I had a conversation with Mike Wolford 3 weeks ago.
He's on our list. We're going to interview him as well.
Great. So Mike was at, and I hope that Mike doesn't mind that I'm sharing this conversation. If you do, Mike, call me and I'll shut up. But the reality of it is that Mike pointed out that there is going to continue to be attrition amongst the recruiting community and that we've got to do something different. Something else that you touched on, though, just now is you talked about software developers and recruiters reigning supreme. There was an article in that was delivered to me via Recruiting Brain Food. Shout out to Hung Lee, that talked about an article that something that was leaked to Business Insider, where they were talking at Amazon and at AWS that you don't need people who know how to code anymore, right?
Yes.
So I almost think, are my 500 pages superfluous? Is it a history guide, right? Like, is it what recruiting once was? Because maybe what we need to focus on now in recruiting, and the same thing in software development, is storytelling about a situation or a problem where we delivered that hope we talked about earlier, that we delivered the solution for somebody and be able to translate it from our mind to our mouth to their ears.
I'm not even going to go deeper there because that just blows my mind, because what you're saying is that life as we know it is going to significantly change in a very short amount of time. And I need to sit with that a little bit to think that through. But you and Hung and whoever wrote this article is likely right. And so I need to go and find that article.
Well, I mean, as we talk about the changes that are taking place in the recruiter ecosystem and the changes that are taking place in the software ecosystem, I'd go back to curiosity, right? Like, if you don't have that curiosity, this is a role that is going to leave you behind. You are not going to be able to keep up with the pace of innovation and change. You are not going to be a lifelong learner. You're not going to be the Jerry Crispin of your domain.
That is 100% true. So tell me, why did you decide to write a book? Why did you decide to write a 500-page book?
I started writing a book about 5 years ago, and it was going to be an introduction to search. And I was like, this has already been done. This has been done by the great Jan Tenzing. I mean, Jan is excellent. He's a very good person.
He's on my list as well.
Okay. All right. So we're getting all the party people. And I thought about it, and I said, and I put it to the side. I knew that I wanted to write a book, but the thing that kept coming up is the question that you asked is, how do you have this knowledge and how do you impart it? And what I wanted to do is, I wrote a book because I wanted to inspire people to be confident in what they could do. And I think that competency makes people feel confident, right? There are parts, when you and I had a preliminary conversation about this, I said, don't read the whole book. Don't read the whole book, right? Like, there are sections in the beginning that are very good and are translatable to every style of recruiting, every vertical of recruiting. There are parts in the book where I talk about diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, which are important to every facet of every organization. Can you tell me what's super inclusive about C++? Because that occurs in the middle of the book, in the middle of the book, right?
But I will tell you, there was a time in my life, had I had this, I would have been a much better recruiter.
Susanna said the same thing to me. Yeah. She was like,
Susanna Fraser?
Yeah. She was like, Yobi, like, you break things down so simple. And the thing is that, like, this book is really a collection of people like Stuart Morris, breaking things down for me simply and complete. Real quick, Stuart Morris is the head of SEO at Home Shopping Network. He's a candidate that I've been working with for the past 14 years, right? So, like, I may have written the book, but the book was inspired by conversations with a lot of candidates. There were days when I was like, how is Python different than Django? Okay, like what is that? What is that about?
Right.
Well, Brian, you can do this and this and this, and you can use Python 3 here, and you can use Python for data science. But and I was like, wait a minute, hold on, whoa. We just opened to a whole new thing. So some of this is a collection of Evernotes that I took. I'm a big Evernote user, but like, I wanted to inspire confidence with competence, and that's why I put the book together. I love it.
The way that you organize it is actually worth referencing here, because yes, you're right. As I read it, I realized that I did not have to read every single section, unless, of course, I was tech recruiting, but I'm not these days. So you start out with a really good high-level explanation of technology and software development, and then you go into specific technologies, which I love that. Apache, Couchbase, you really just dive into it so that if I need to understand the difference or how things might be related, I can refer to that, and I can do that fairly quickly. And then you jump into recruiting and how to do that in a way that makes sense. And then you go back and you get a little bit technical, a little bit more as you get to the end, as you start to talk about the different positions and what the different positions within a software organization, what they do. So I love the fact that you broke it down slightly differently, and I would reference this in a different way. And if I were recruiting, I'd keep this right next tech recruiting. I'd sit this right next to my computer because I know I'd always want to just go in and learn a little bit more about what it is that I wanted to do or was working on.
Visionary voices, bold breakthroughs. This is Shally's Alley, where top recruiting minds spill their best-kept secrets live every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Raw, unfiltered conversations on sourcing, hiring, and the future of talent, where we ask the tough questions no one else will. Tune in and level up.
Hey, business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 125,000 bonus miles for a limited time through October 29th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends October 29th, 2025.
Well, it's built that way, right? Like I built it in such a way that it pulls away and strips away the different layers of an application of the internet. So if you're a cloud recruiter, a recruiter that specializes in cloud recruiting, there's a part of the book that's there for you, right? Mm-hmm. I'd say 80% of the book is for you then. If you recruit specifically in front-end technologies, I'd say 80% of the book is there for you, minus that 20% about cloud technology. If you're not a technical recruiter, I think that there are a lot of important lessons that are in the book that take on topics that, that maybe recruiters should be a little more comfortable talking about. And that's the abundance mindset that I think that I don't think power should be concentrated in one group of people. I think power should be shared. And I think that one of the things that the book really does is capitalizes upon communities, businesses, and economy and that intersection that happens there.
I think you're right. So give me, not from the book, but just what's the state of tech recruiting right now? What's difficult to find? I know we sort of delved into a little bit about what we think the future might look like. I would love if you would share a little bit about that.
Okay, so what do I think the state of technical recruiting looks like today is that I think that, Carmen, I think a lot of people got hired at the fallout of COVID to ramp up and to extract a lot of talent from the marketplace. And I don't know that everybody who fell into recruiting in that 2-year window should stick with recruiting. I think that they've got great transferable skills that can be used in sales and marketing, in consulting, in building and teaching and growing our communities. That's not me saying I've shut the door on you because you lost your job. That's maybe you need to take your skill set and use it in different directions and different purviews. What I'm seeing candidly is I'm seeing job applications that when a job gets posted on LinkedIn, in 2 hours, there are like 2,600 applicants for that technical recruiting role. I am seeing a lot of ageism. I'll go ahead and say it, right? Like I'm not afraid to address the elephants in the room. But, I have conversations, like I had a conversation this morning with a friend of mine who they've been recruiting for 30 plus years. We're going to argue, since I'm eternally 45, that they must be 55, right? And in that 5-year gap, people are looking at them and saying, nah, I'm going to move on. I'm going to pick somebody else, right? I'm going to go with somebody else. It's like later in your career when you're in baseball or football, you get paid the big bucks. But I'm seeing that trend kind of move away, right?
Trust me, being on the outer edge of that, I've seen quite a bit of that over the last 3 or 4 years. I think you're right. What about for the technologists? What about for the software developers? What does the landscape look like for them?
So software developers right now, I think, falls into 2 categories, right? Like people are getting paid really, really well, or people are getting paid very poorly. If you go to levels.fyi, and I was on there actually, on there with one of my managers, with John Rivera, earlier today when we were talking about compensation. Shout out to John, love John. is we were talking about compensation for this one particular role that needs 5 years of experience, right? It is a threat researcher. It's an individual who knows Python and Bash, but also can leverage some automations. And I think that is the big key word now, whether you're a front-end developer, whether you're a back-end developer, whether you're DevSecOps, how you leverage automation. If you're not leveraging automation to make things more airtight, more simplistic, more making them more efficient, making them more proficient, right? I think you're at a loss, right? Like it was like, Carmen, you and I were having a conversation. So for those of you who weren't on the pre-show, because Carmen and I were doing it, we're just hanging out, is that I'm the guy who thinks that AI is going to start accessing API calls at scale and making dinner reservations for you and your friends, sending out the invites to your friends and booking it at a restaurant that you've booked at and given good marks to on Yelp, and getting you that key reservation at 7 p.m. and disrupting the app ecosystem. I think there's a lot of change coming. And if you don't learn automation, you don't learn transformers like a hugging face, you are going to be left behind. You are going to be sidelined. You're going to be pushed aside. That's it. I mean,
How fast do you think that will happen?
2 years.
Wow.
If you've got major employers, not ours, but if you've got major employers that are pulling out of college career fairs because they don't think that they need to get people in their funnel that they can grow because of I mean, like, you know what nobody's talking about? Nobody's talking about GitHub and GitHub Actions and GitHub Copilot, right? Nobody's talking about that if you find a fork of code and you can tell it what you want it to do, that you can make that code generate more code.
Right.
I wrote an article about GitHub Actions 2 or 3 years ago for SourceCon, and it was like dead in the water. Like nobody read it, but like, you've got so many advances that are happening with a GitHub Actions or a GitHub Copilot, and it's that automation, and it's taking less time to write less code for it to 10x what you're trying to do. I think tech recruiters and technologists are going to need to focus on the fundamentals of how they tell stories and how they communicate their ideas, because they're going to be communicating their ideas to ever larger audiences and getting the code to spin on its own.
Wow.
Now, it's not to say that you're not going to have engineers that are going to focus on lower level or kernel code, right? Like getting really close to the chipset and what that looks like. There was an article the beginning of this week, and we are taping the week of Labor Day. There was an article at the beginning of this week that talked about how Volkswagen may close factories for the first time, and as a result of electric vehicles coming in from different markets into the German marketplace, right? Or in the EU, right? Same thing is going to happen with the knowledge economy.
That is where we are. And I think I'm trying this on and I'm trying to think through all of this and what this means. I think part of this means it's time for retooling, reskilling. That's a big piece of it. But I also think that one of the natural effects of this is that people will be spun out into different work areas.
So people can be spun into different specializations. There's a great book. It's called Range. It's by David Epstein. How generalists triumph in a specialized world. It's about, choosing your life's work and how you can solve difficult problems. There are always going to be difficult problems. It's going to be how we solve those problems that is going to change in the next 18 months to 2 years, how we change those. Do you want to be Tiger Woods or do you want to be Roger Federer, right? Tiger Woods, he wanted to play golf, right? He started playing golf when he was really young. He says that he wanted to play golf. He specialized in it. He's one of the best golfers in the world. You got Roger Federer, who played all these different sports, right? And wasn't sure what he wanted to do. And his mother got upset with him when he won his first tennis tournament because they said, what are you going to do with the prize money? He said, I'm going to buy Mercedes. And it says like he's saying he's going to buy a Mercedes, but he said he wanted to buy more CDs. Okay. So, but here's the thing is that we're telling intimate stories here about our personal experiences, about the experiences of others, how we communicate ideas. That is going to be the fundamental bedrock on which recruiting, technology, product, marketing is going to be unleashed.
So let's dive a little bit into your techniques when it comes to recruiting and screening. I'd love to hear a little bit about your process for screening technical candidates. How do you determine whether or not to pass along a candidate? What do you ask? Do you get technical? How do you know what to ask? How do you determine if someone's good?
Carmen, I think that we talk about the resume a lot. I like to look and see what else you've done, like if you contributed to CNCF, the open source foundation, what your code looks like, things like that, right? So if I get on the phone with you and we're going to have a conversation, and I probably average about 20 to 25 conversations a week, the first thing I'm going to say is, hey, Carmen, we're going to have a great conversation today. So we have a great conversation. I need to know this. Do I go first or do you go first? And what I mean by that, Carmen, is do you want to give me a 2-minute snapshot about who you are, where you've been, and where you're going? Or do you want me to tell you a little bit about McAfee, about where we've been, what we're doing, and where we're going? And Carmen, you choose which pathway we're going to go down. And I tell you a little bit about the company, or you tell me a little bit about yourself. And in that 2-minute snapshot, you qualify yourself for a number of opportunities that I might be working on, because I'm listening to you saying, I've worked in AWS today and I've worked in GCP. I want to work in Azure. Oh, well, what are you doing to update your Azure skill set? So we can ask those kind of, wow. And then the other question I like to ask candidates is, wow, that sounds hard. Can you explain to me how you did that? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, if it sounds canned, I ask that question a lot, but I've got to wait for the right prompt to do that.
Let me stop you there, because I think that's a great way to engage with candidates. But I don't know if all or many tech recruiters could have a conversation in that way and then do the traffic directing to get the person to the right opportunity. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That you have to have a broader understanding of all the technology that's happening in your organization in order to direct someone to the right place. I don't know
if the first
conversations with recruiters or with sourcers are working out in that same way in many organizations.
Running a business comes with a lot of what ifs, but luckily there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So the question I would then ask is, are you doing the best you can do in a hiring manager intake session to understand the role, the technologies that are being used, how they play with one another? I'm very sorry that people think that they can have an intake session, I like to call it a strategy session, in 30 minutes or less, okay? It's like they want to get in and get out as fast as they can. No, this is a relationship.
It's an ongoing conversation.
Take it slow. We don't have to swipe right immediately, okay? I think that it goes back to the conversation you're having with the hiring manager to find out what they're looking for. And I think it's also talking to your other recruiters that work in your organization and not being afraid to share a candidate. Because here's the thing. You're a corporate recruiter. Your job is to make your organization the best it can be. So let's say that I talk to a DevSecOps engineer or candidate who applied for it, or that I screened for it, or that I sourced, and they're not right. But I know Julian is looking, another shout out to a member of my team, is looking for somebody different. Hey, Julian, I got this guy who does these 3 things really well. Is that a fit for your role? Well, if I'm talking to Julian every Monday and Thursday, I know what Julian's working on, and I've got that type of synergistic relationship with them. It goes back to communication. It goes back to storytelling and listening. It's seeking to understand so you can be understood.
So what you're describing, the role of a sourcer or a recruiter for a team, is someone who gets to know the opportunities in all areas of the company, or at least all technical areas. And it's not just focusing on the work that they are doing.
It's going back to that range, that generalist approach that I talk about, right? I mean, Carmen, I've already said in this conversation, technical recruiting is in the toilet. Okay. If I wasn't clear about that, okay, is that do you have the range and the fundamentals? Do you have curiosity, empathy, tenacity, and mischievousness to go be a recruiter for other roles and ask deep and penetrating questions of your hiring managers and your candidates as they affect the business?
I think you have a portion of recruiters who are right there with you. And I think you have another portion of recruiters, another big segment of recruiters who have no idea of where to even begin, where to start to develop that skill.
Carmen, pick up.
He's pointing to, for the radio listeners out there, he's pointing to a copy of a specific recruiting book.
So, corporate recruiting playbook, pick that up, pick up my book and jump straight to chapter 7.
I will be honest with you. One of the reasons I started this podcast is to encourage others to write their books. There's just, I think, quite a few stories out there that need to be told. And there are quite a few people out there who could benefit from those stories being told. I think you mentioned that you are working on another book.
I am. I'm working on one. I call it affectionately around the house, the yellow book. I'm working on a yellow book and an orange book. The orange book is family history. The yellow book is everything that I think you need to succeed as a internal recruiter or an external recruiter, right?
Oh, interesting.
So this has got, because look, I've done both. Okay. I love agency land. My heart goes out to agency land. I love corporate recruiting. I love them both. I was talking to Erin Matthew the other day and she's like, Brian, sweetheart, you wrote 50 pages about the hiring intake session. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, that's way too much. That's overkill.
Sorry. I don't think there's any such thing as too much information, because from there you will either succeed or not.
Yeah. So I've got to finish it.
But I love Erin.
Yeah, I love it. I love Erin too. Erin and I talk every day. Like, she's already called me while I was on her and Michael Goldberg have both already called me while I'm on the call with you. It is more about the fundamentals of recruiting and what you need to do to execute. There's a considerable amount of time that I spend in the book about time management. Carmen, I think that's another, if Barbara Marks was on this call with us today, Barbara, who I work with here at McAfee, I think she would tell you about the importance of time management, right? We've talked about client management, but if you can't control your time and what you're doing and how you're doing it, you are going to spin into a superfluous pond of nothing.
Let me ask you my survey question. Should recruiters commit to a timeline with hiring managers?
No.
Really?
Because I think that there are a lot of metrics that are a little outmoded, like time to hire, or like, does time to hire impact quality of fill?
Gotcha.
Right? I made a hire in 3 weeks. They were with the organization for 90 days. What was the point of reducing my time to hire from 92 days to 72 days if the people don't stick, right? So I take issue with that. I don't have the data. Mr. Crispin, I am working on the data, okay? I am working on that.
I'm going to push back just a little.
Go for it.
So I agree with you. I don't think that working faster always helps us work smarter. So no, we shouldn't do that. But I think we should actually have an honest conversation with hiring managers about how long it's going to take us to fill a certain role. That's what's most important to hiring managers. And I think of any other organization in a corporation, and they could not get away with saying, oh, yeah, I'll get that done. Well, when? Well, when it happens. That is not how business is conducted. We have to be able to say, this will likely take us 8 weeks. Based on my calendar and your calendar, it's likely going to take us closer to 10 weeks. So let's put a stake in the ground. Let's make sure that we are staying on track. And if anything changes, we'll renegotiate this. But I think we need to, as recruiters, get in the habit of putting a timeline around the work that we do?
So I think that they're setting expectations like you do, and that's fair and amicable. And I realize what it does for the business is it creates that predictability in the business. What I think why recruiters are afraid to put the stake in the ground that you're putting in there is they don't come to the hiring manager's conversation with data, right? In the conversation I had with John today, John and I talked about this role, this threat researcher, where we could find them, what companies we could find them from, compensation, did we need to see if there was an adjustment up front, and what the interview process was going to be, right? Because John, I'm looking at it right now, John is going to have them meet with 4 people, including himself, right? Once we have that conversation for this role, that makes sense for the grade that this role's at. But if he was to say, well, it's going to be 7, then I would say to him, 1, that's too many. 2, that's going to push back your timeline. And I would have that constructive conversation that way. I think a lot of this may, in fact, go back to that whole order taker syndrome that a lot of recruiters fall into. And we've got to be
So
more
I think we're a lot closer on this topic than I thought.
than far apart, yeah.
I think you're right. I think it is a matter of getting into the habit of having that right conversation, and as an ongoing conversation. It's not that I put a stake in the ground and I've got to meet that. If it looks like I'm having difficulty and challenges finding people out in the marketplace, then I'm going to have to extend that timeline, and that's just the reality of it. But that helps everyone plan. There is no such thing as a sales organization that doesn't say I'm going to earn this company X of dollars within this time frame. Every quarter they've got to turn in what they think they're going to be doing. And I think that we have really stepped back from that so much that we are viewed as incompetent and not really in control of what we do.
So I don't want to turn, I know we're talking about books and I've already recommended Range. Have you read Move Fast and Fix Things?
I think I did a while ago.
Yeah, I got a hold of that book. I read it on my trip down to Bogota. And I think that it didn't say this per se, but that working backwards and working back from that date that you're going to fill that role. That's a criticality. That's a lesson that I took from AWS. And if you don't,
it's just how business gets done, right? It is, we have shirked the responsibility that is ours, and that is to get talent in a specific time frame. Okay, we're running out of time.
It's all good. We knew it was going to happen. 2 friends.
That's okay. We will have additional conversations. I would love to just have you end by, you start talking about data. So I want to hear a little bit about what are your favorite data gathering spots? What do you rely on? What's important to you? What can we?
So one thing that I'm using right now and is I'm using Revelio to find data as a tool. I'm also using justicemap.org as a tool.
I love the Justice Map. It is my favorite thing in all the data that's available. I love that tool.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with this tool, this really breaks down different socioeconomic information in the county layer throughout the United States. So, if you are trying to make sure you have representation of an underrepresented group, you can go there and you can use that as a record point. One of the other tools that we use here at McAfee is that we use Seekout for some of that data as well. And then I use LinkedIn Insights. And then lastly, I'm using perplexity.ai to pull a lot of that information back, because what I've found with Perplexity is that its hallucinations for AI are not as vast as what you experience with a chat GPT, and it cites where it pulls that information from. So for instance, if I said, where's the best place in America to find data scientists? It'll pull back that information and say, here's what this says. And you want to go to Indeed, and Indeed has this marked for you. And I can matriculate that data in a much clearer, cleaner fashion.
Awesome.
And I'm using the free version of Perplexity. If you know me, you know my favorite 4-letter word that begins with an F is free. Get your mind out of the gutter, Steve Levy. I know what you were going to say.
Well, Brian, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to recommend that every tech recruiter, and as you mentioned, every recruiter pick up a copy of Talk Tech to Me. You've done a great job. I am very much looking forward to your next book. Likely have you on again because I just love talking to you.
Party people. We're gonna party at RecFest. I'll see you there.
That's it. I'll see you there.
Bye,
Awesome.
my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.